in 2009, when we started talking about starting reading success by 4th grade, never in our wildest dreams did I think we'd have a room here full of all these people interested as we were in this subject. And never did I think we'd make as much progress as we've made, as you'll hear here today. We made the progress by support from all of you and people in our community. Unfortunately, the mayor can't be here this morning, but he was one of the prime movers in this effort, and I'd like to thank Dominic Sarno for his support. And Dominic's represented today here by Denise Jordan. Denise? Thank you, Denise. Send our regards to the mayor. Also, another very important person in this whole endeavor has been our superintendent, Dan Warwick. And Dan, I'd like to call you up to say a few words.
Thank you, John. I'd like to begin by thanking the Davis family, Sally Fuller, and the whole group that has really brought the whole community together about this important piece of early literacy and how important it is to the future of our community. We all know that our children are our future, and we have many, many challenges like every other urban center. I was looking at some very, very sobering statistics last week relative to the poverty rate here in Springfield, that we are at the highest level of poverty in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Just about 80% of our kids now are direct cert for relative to the poverty level of receiving public assistance. So more and more, we're going to need the support of the community. When you look at the relationship of poverty to child development and how they enter kindergarten, the effects are just very, very significant. And we need an entire community effort to combat what I would call as a crisis. In spite of all of our efforts in recent years, and I think as a community, Springfield has done more than any other community to support its children, done many, many endeavors in early childhood, looking at the 0 to 5 population and trying to provide better programs for our kids. The challenges are there. We still face a lot of challenges with kindergarten readiness, and the levels are still at what I'd call a crisis in the community. So we all need to continue our work. We're not where we need to be, but I think we also need to remember to celebrate the successes we've had and be thankful to see, like John said earlier, an entire community embracing this issue. Very, very grateful to Mayor Sarno and the school committee for all their support in early childhood programming. A few years ago, I remember going down to the mayor when the Early Childhood Center on State Street was about to close, and we don't have enough early childhood venues, and most of those venues are in churches and in basements where they're really not optimal learning environments. And went down to the mayor, and in spite of really difficult challenges, he came up with the money to support opening that early childhood center, then working with my team and the early childhood providers in the community, and many of them are here today. We put together a program in that early childhood center that's a combination of public and private programs actually working together to not only provide early childhood programming, which is so important, but to improve the quality of the program, because the literacy levels are so very important. And if kids aren't reading on level by 4th grade, we know what a high risk they have towards not graduating from high school and not having the kind of future we need them to have. So I think all the accomplishments are significant. I was looking at the 11% increase in proficiency in the 3rd grade test scores. There was a lot of hard work by everyone. And as you read the research, you know how important that early learning piece is, especially in the urban centers where kids are living in dire poverty, and how important it is that we intervene early and we intervene effectively, and that it's an entire community effort. I think the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child, is so true. And I'm very, very proud as a Springfield native to be here with you today because I'm very, very proud of what the entire Springfield community has done to address this challenge. And we've had some successes. We've had some increase in the attendance rates, and we've had some increase in the reading proficiency by 4th grade. We've also, in the last 5 years, taken our dropout rate down to half of what it was. We're down from 10 to 4.9%, and increased our graduation rate by 16%. But I would say that that's not enough. We need to do more. We need to get that better as a community because our future depends on it. But I want to applaud you all for your great work on this. I came in a very, very good mood this morning. I'm a huge Patriots fan. I thought that was a great call on the goal line. Tremendous. The referee was absolutely outstanding, and I was walking in with Jim Ayers, and he let me know he was a Pittsburgh fan. So I feel bad for Jim over at the United Way because the Patriots, we've had our share of success over the last few years. And I just again want to say thank you to everyone here. Thank you for all your support. Again, applaud the Davis family for their leadership in this work, and tell you that we have a lot more to do and a lot more work in front of us if we're going to improve the levels to what we need for the future of this community. So again, happy holidays to all, and thank you.
Thank you, Dan. This is so exciting to see all these bright and shining faces and to know how hard we've worked together. And I think to know how hard we'll continue to work around this important initiative. I'm Sally Fuller. I'm Project Director for Reading Success by 4th grade. I'm happy to always carry this little guy with me because, the places our children are going to go because of the work that we're doing and the work that we're all doing together in this community. So my hope for this morning is that you will, and I think John and Dan have really set the stage, that you will understand the complexity of the task we're working on. We understand that this work begins at birth, and we understand that there are a lot of complicated, complex issues that we're tackling to make sure that kids read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. You'll see just some of the examples of things we're doing. And what you need to know is that we have a myriad of strategies that are going on simultaneously. And what I can say is there's not a single person in this room who's not working with us. That's really exciting. Everybody here is working on some piece of the puzzle or other. So we're grateful for that. And I think John said it, that is really why the Davis Foundation has stayed in this work, because we're excited to see sometimes it's baby steps, but they're steps forward, needless to say. So thank you, Davis Foundation. Thank you, Mary Wallachy. Steve Davis isn't with us this morning. Drew's here. I think Drew Davis was here. But this family has committed incredible resources and time and energy into this work, and we're grateful for that. So I do want to say everybody in the room has played a wonderful role here, a role in this work. I do want to acknowledge some extra special, they're just special because they are so committed to as our partners. Department of Early Education and Care. So it begins at birth. We think a lot about early childhood education, and we have Carol Nolan here from the Department of Early Education and Care, and we have Noni Lasso, who is chair of the board of the Department of Early Education and Care. Stand up, ladies. They need to see who you are. And I don't know I hope everybody in the room knows that Mary Wallachy is also a member of the board of the Department of Early Education and Care. So that's what we call real support. So I'd like Ron and Ralph. Let's see, where's Ralph Smith and Ron? They're our special guests from the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, and Carolyn Lyons, Campaign for Grade Level Reading. One of our purposes here today is for you to either meet everybody here who's doing the work in Springfield, Massachusetts, or in some cases to meet them again. So we're very happy to have you here, and you will hear from them, so you'll really know what's going on the national level. So I think we have some of our elected officials here. I saw Jose Tosado, State Rep Jose Tosado is here. I think that, I don't know if I saw Angelo Pupolo. I know, hi Angelo, sorry, glad you're here. We also have a state rep from Haverhill who's here, don't we? Andy Vargas, would you stand up? So I think that's pretty impressive. We have a team here from Haverhill, school committee, state rep, and they are about to embark on this work of grade level reading. So we're happy that you made the journey, and I hope we're helping you figure out just what, we'll try not to talk about the complexity too much because we don't want to scare you away. We also have Tim Allen here, city councilor. Tim is back there. And a newly elected member of the Springfield School Committee, Latonia Naylor, I think, is here. I hope I haven't missed anyone, have I? Denise Hurst is here, good. Denise Hurst? Thank you, hi, I didn't see her. Glad you came. Okay, so we're here to celebrate. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm gonna try not to talk your ear off, but there is so much to celebrate. The work that we've done, that you've done since 2009. In 2009, you know that we came together and we brought the community together to say, what can we do to move the needle on third grade reading proficiency? John Davis, mild-mannered John Davis, was outraged by the data, and as a manufacturing family, the Davis family realized that reading proficiency, that academic success is the most important economic development tool that there is. And so we brought the community together and we said, what can we do to move the needle on third grade reading proficiency? Who's doing the work in the community? What are some best practices that other communities are doing? And how do we think about that for Springfield? And we came up with a blueprint for Springfield. We had some strategies and some steps to move forward, and I went to a meeting in Washington, D.C., and I met Ralph Smith, and he made this announcement that the Casey Foundation was funding the beginning of a national initiative called the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, because that's an important milestone in child development, and this national campaign was just beginning, and they were very excited about the work that they were going to be doing. And I walked up to Ralph Smith and I said, Ralph, you don't know me, but here's a blueprint for reading success for Springfield, Massachusetts. We've spent the last year working on it. Kathleen Trapphagen is here. She was a big partner in crime as we developed this community blueprint. And Ralph and I have been fast friends ever since. And we're very proud to be part of the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. And so as part of that, the National Civic League decided that they were going to focus on communities doing grade level reading proficiency initiatives back in 2012. I think maybe Ron and Ralph probably talked them into it, pretty much. And we submitted our blueprint for Springfield based on school readiness, summer learning, and chronic absenteeism and attendance to be considered for an All-America City Award. That plan that we submitted, I had to write over Christmas that year because of my friends Ralph and Ron talking me into it, and they never showed up to decorate my Christmas tree. I sort of was a little bit disappointed in that. But anyway, we submitted our plan, and in 2012, we went to Denver, Colorado, and were given an All-America City, recognized with an All-America City Award for our literacy plan. But that wasn't enough. They said, well, okay, in 5 years, you have to come back, and we're going to do the All-America City Award again to cities, states, towns, communities that have made progress in grade level reading. And so Dan talked about the progress we've made as a community, and so we were lucky enough to be recognized with a second All-America City Award last June. And I'm happy. I was happy for that recognition because there were only 4 communities in the country that were given the recognition in 2012 and then were given the recognition for progress. So you need to clap again for yourselves because the work was done by you, every one of you. So we know that the premise is that the work begins at birth. We know from long conversations that parents are the secret sauce. And we know that our work together is what supports children outside the home. So parents and families begin the work, they begin it at birth, and then we all take over when children get into high-quality early childhood education and children get into the pre-K to 12 school systems. So we do the beginning work, parents do the beginning work, and then we're the supporters of the work. You're going to hear about some of the things that we've been doing in our community, but also we are sharing with you our scorecard. We know when we came back from Denver that we had this great plan for grade level reading proficiency. We had a plan, and John Davis said, "So Sally, how are we going to know if what we're doing is making a difference for anybody?" And I wasn't really sure. But we were given, as part of our work with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, a tool that has really proved invaluable. It's based on the results-based accountability framework. We had the shared vision, all kids reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. We had a backbone organization. We found that was us. And we began to think about shared measurements and how do we do this. So we have been working. Again, I see so many people here who have been doing the work, and we've been doing the work using this results-based accountability framework, gathering the data, and then developing strategies based on what was happening in our community organizations. And we're sharing with you a brand new, hot-off-the-press toolkit that talks about how we have framed this work. We found parents and families love bookmarks, so we show families reading on our bookmarks, and we give reading tips on our bookmarks. So we decided that this would be a very effective way to share our data-driven work with families and the community. And so you'll see. I hope you'll take it. I hope you'll take it home. You might want to separate them, give them to people that you know. It's based on the way we've been doing this work. School readiness, summer learning, chronic absenteeism. We've recently brought health determinants for school success into the mix. And we, of course, everything we do is we thread family engagement through it. So there is a public scorecard. The URL is on here, and I hope you'll go back to your offices or your homes and look at and see. We've agreed on, the people who do the work, that's you, have agreed on what the indicators are that we're working on to move the needle on grade level reading proficiency. And we've worked with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission very closely. They're our data hub, and we gather the data and we sit down in our work groups. And I'm sure that when people in my work groups, I'm going to have you each work group stand up. You come every month. There aren't many months that we miss, and we've been doing this for several years. And we sit down and we look at the data and we say, what are we doing? What can we do? And how can we do it better? So you need to know that the programs that the Davis Foundation supports are aligned with all of those work groups, so that when we look at a program, when we think about funding it, we say, how does it affect this? How does it affect the work that we're doing? Does it promote school readiness? Does it promote summer learning? And that has been the framework that the foundation has undertaken. We also have been very fortunate to have pulled together a leadership group from our community. We have a lot of people on the ground who are doing this work, but we also have a very effective leadership group. And so Mike Sweet and John Davis have co-chaired that, and Mike is going to tell us a little bit about the work of that group.
Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everyone. So as Sally said, I'm Mike Sweet, and I'm one of the initial chairs of the Reading Success by Fourth Grade Leadership Advisory Committee. In 2014, John and Mary and Sally asked me to help them launch the Leadership Advisory Committee. We reached out to a group of very, very busy people and asked them to squeeze one more thing in and asked them if they'd be willing to meet with us once a month and lend to us and this cause their wisdom, their experience, their passion, and their influence, all for the cause of helping Springfield's kids. The response we got when we reached out to people and asked them to participate was overwhelming. A few people rolled their eyes when they found out we were asking them to come do yet another thing, but I don't think anybody said no. And this group of people has come together once a month for the last couple years, and for an hour and a half, and we listen to what's going on in the community and present our ideas and maybe challenge Sally and Mary a little bit. I'm sure disagree with each other at times about the best courses of action. But it doesn't end there either. This group of people also is always available in between the meetings. And that's where, as we all know, a lot of the work gets done. And really, the one common thread among all of us is we all appreciate the importance of this work, and we all want to help. And that's what this is really about, is finding a way individually and collectively to help. So on this committee, we've had presidents of local colleges. We have leaders in local government. We have lawyers, doctors, former principal, teachers, very, very significantly, Superintendent Warwick and also his leadership team that have been a consistent and really excellent presence throughout. And certainly one of the messages from me this morning would be to congratulate you, to thank you, because it's not often you get asked to participate in a committee and at the same time try to figure out what the committee's trying to do. So thank you for that. Also, clearly, we're not done, but I did want to ask each of you who participate on that committee to stand up and receive some very well-deserved recognition for your work. Thank you. And then the last thing, I just want to say thank you to Sally. It is, all of us know what a privilege it is to work with Sally and how fun it is. And, our monthly meetings where we get together in my office or yours and think about what it is we're trying to tackle are really great experiences for me, and I'm inspired by you and for your love of the community and love of children. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so what we're going to do, these posters in front of you represent just some of the things we're working on, some of the initiatives, some of the strategies that we've developed. One of the things that we came to realize early on in this work is that this work is bigger than Davis Foundation. And so Mary and Katie Zobel and a group of funders came together to form the Funder Collaborative for Reading Success. You had to put some money in a pot, and we said as funders we were going to work together and support initiatives that are aligned with and help move the needle for grade level reading. Katie Zobel is head of the Community Foundation, where the money is located. And come on up, Katie, and has been with us since the beginning.
Where the money is. Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is, as John said, looking out here, this is pretty fantastic. Thank you, Sally, for getting us here on a Monday morning, because as I think Sally referenced, in 2009 or earlier when John heard about this data around reading success, the question was who, besides our teachers and our superintendent and the mayor, who is waking up worried about this? And clearly all of you are. You woke up and you're here and you were thinking about this, and you're thinking about it all the time thanks to the work of the Davises and many others. So thank you. I think the superintendent spoke eloquently this morning about this is a team sport. This work, while Sally talked about the parents' role and we talked about the teacher's role, that's not it. It's a community's responsibility. It's a team effort. And when you think about the enormous task at hand, it has to be a team effort. So when we think about the team effort of getting kids ready to learn, ready for kindergarten and learning, that's a huge effort, but it costs something. So it's also a team sport for the funders to get together. So Sally, mentioned a little bit of the history of sort of how this got brewed up, and we can thank Mary for that, and maybe Jack Dill and a few others. I just happily rode along with it. So I'm here just to, on behalf of many of the people participating in the Funder Collaborative, and actually, I'd like to thank those, because I saw quite a few of them here. Maybe if you're a member of the Funder Collaborative for Reading Success, please stand up so we can say thank you, thank you, thank you. I know I can see People's Bank and Berkshire Bank, United Way, and Beverage Foundation. Thank you so much, because we've raised $2.2 million and put a lot of, not all of it yet, but put a lot of that money to good work. And just one quick thing, and I know it seems crazy, but on the way here I was thinking about Aristotle. It's a very rare thing for me, but I was thinking about the quote attributed to him about the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that is so true with this work, but it's really true with this Funder Collaborative, because each of us, say there's 12 or 15, depending on the year, 15 of us, who could each maybe put $10,000, $25,000, $150,000 towards this issue. We would each do it in our own way, in our own corner, doing our own thing based on some data. And now, when we can pool the money together, instead of a mile wide and an inch deep, we can get really focused, have that really intensive dosage that's needed, and have that patient capital to be looking for the long term over a number of years. And that's so important for this work. This is not a one and done. This is not a couple of years as we've seen. So that's the power of the team effort, of everyone coming together and putting their resources together. We can put more money to a very specific focus. But the other piece that we don't really talk about is when you come together like that, you're accountable to each other. When you're on your own, you can be disciplined to a certain degree, and you can be accountable to yourself. But when you're in a group like this, you're accountable and responsible to each other. That's really powerful, because we're all needing to row in the same direction. And I find that accountability and that responsibility as a group one of the most powerful things. So I want to thank everyone for all the roles that you're playing, each and every one of you in your various ways. It is a complicated, complex problem, so the complicated and complex solutions are right here in this room, and I thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And when the Funder Collaborative got together, they looked at the at the blueprint, and they said, here are some of the strategies, and collectively they said, here are the things we would like to focus on. And so one of them, of course, one of the focus areas has been improving the quality of early childhood education for our children. And so we were lucky enough to have a very collaborative preschool community. Our public school preschool providers, our early childhood providers, you're all here, for-profit, not-for-profit, have worked together, collaborated very successfully for a lot of years. But everybody was doing their work in their own way, and one of the things that bubbled up as a result of this work was, wouldn't we be able to target our children more effectively if we were having a common curriculum? So because we get to, one of the blessings of working with a foundation is we can get to work with some experts, and our early childhood community brought Noni Lasso and her team to Springfield, and they worked with this community, with this early provider community, and selected a common curriculum. And I'm going to bring Laura Menz up here just to talk a little bit about that. So we now have a common curriculum, and now the challenge is to spread it throughout the community. And so the Funder Collaborative chose to make a significant grant to help do that. Laura's going to tell us how.
Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure to follow Katie and be able to publicly thank the Funder Collaborative for the donation for the common curriculum. It's really made an impact so far, and I'm here to tell you just a little bit about how we got there, or how we got here, and where we're going. As Sally said, about 4 years ago, Joan Kagan, Mr. Warwick, and a few of us got together with some of the community partners and met with Noni Lasso and Stephanie Jones out of Harvard, because we wanted that common curriculum to align best practices and really move the needle on those outcomes for children in those early grades, preparing them for kindergarten. So we selected a curriculum titled Big Day for Pre-K, and we implemented it in all of our Springfield Public School classrooms and our preschool expansion grant classrooms. And we had early education coaches in those classrooms doing that work. And the Funder Collaborative came to us and said, what more can we do? What can we do to help you? And so one of the ideas we landed on was that they would fund additional curriculum for additional community partner classrooms to get this resource. And Mr. Warwick said to us, and continue the coaching with those classrooms. So this was a collaborative effort. It was the community Funder Collaborative funding that curriculum, but it was also the Springfield Public Schools allocating their resources to continue that coaching. So it's been a very nice collaborative effort, and we're just starting to see the results of that. Our next steps is to measure those outcomes of those children who have participated. But we really couldn't do this work without some terrific, terrific coaches, and two of which are here in the room, and I want them to stand up and just wave to everyone, Megan and Carrie. They're two of a team of 5 that really go out and make sure that we're aligning these practices, not just in the public schools, but with our partners, and trying to bring those best practices to the forefront. They have a Facebook page, they hold monthly professional learning community sessions, and they go out and do some one-to-one coaching in the classroom. So without their heart and soul in this, it wouldn't be enough with just the curriculum. But thank you very much.
Such good stuff going on. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about every one of these posters because we want to have you out of here before 2. But in my work with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading with the national movement, one of the things that has gotten a great deal of attention is our Funder Collaborative. People are very interested in knowing how communities fund this work, and so that's why I wanted to share that with you. They also ask me a great deal about our community data warehouse. And so I won't even begin to explain that to you. I'm going to bring up the head of the IT department for the Springfield Public Schools, the visionary behind that data warehouse. But And he offers his expertise over and over again. I have communities calling and saying, how does that data warehouse work? And I send them right to Paul, and he's our guru.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Sally. Excuse me. Katie said a few minutes ago that this work is a team sport. And so I guess the best way to frame the community data warehouse is you can't have an effective team if not everybody has the same data. If everybody doesn't have the data that they need to be effective. And so the community data warehouse really emerged from a problem that I think was a known problem, and it's known in kind of every community that does this work. The Springfield Public Schools serve somewhere around, 25,600 students, but we serve them 180 days a year for about 7 hours a day. And then there's a huge number of organizations in the community, many of whom are represented here, who are serving them during the summer, serving them after school, serving them before school. And so the Community Data Warehouse Initiative was really, and it really was, emphasis on community, right? Many people in this room were part of the emergence of the Community Data Warehouse and part of sort of figuring out how to make this work. But the problem we were trying to solve is we have a lot of data on what's happening with our students when they're in school that organizations serving our kids when they were not in school didn't have. And we also, as a school system, didn't have visibility into which of our students were being served by what organizations, and perhaps more importantly, which of our students weren't being served by any organization. So what we ended up doing, and again, there's a number of people in the room who are part of this, but the Springfield Public Schools, we had for a long time our own data warehouse, and just, I don't know if data warehouse sounds scary, but it's a database where we house all of the data that we have about the kids in the Springfield Public Schools. And so we've had that for a long time, and it's something we've used internally with principals, with teachers, with other administrators to be able to access data to make good decisions. And so all we did as a group was we just worked out a way so that same data could be shared with community organizations. And the way that works, it's pretty simple. Partner organizations sign a memorandum of agreement with the Springfield Public Schools, and then they add a real simple release to the existing registration materials. So for the most part, all of the organizations in the community that are serving our kids outside school are doing it, students are registering, families are registering their kids for those programs. So we simply added a real simple release to that registration material, and then my team just gives a login account to our data warehouse to members of those organizations. And when they log into our data warehouse, they see everything that we would see about the kids in their program. And on the school system side, what we are able to see is, as I said a second ago, which of our students are being served by the community organizations, and which of our students are not being served by any organization. That's going to give us the opportunity to think about, are there students we need to refer who need something after school, who need something in the summer, who need something before school. So that's really the genesis of it and the purpose of it. And up till now, just as a status report, this is our second year. We have 18 community organizations who've signed on and who are actively telling the Springfield school system which students they're serving, and who are then logging into the data warehouse, accessing data. So just to give an example of what that can look like, say students are going to an after-school program. The folks running that after-school program can log into our data warehouse, say 3 o'clock as school's getting out, and find out which of the students in their program are absent today. And they can see that, they can look at that, hopefully it prompts conversations. So say a kid shows up at an after-school program and the program knows they weren't at school today. They can ask the question, hey, what happened? Why weren't you at school today? But they can also access things like grades. They can access things like discipline. They can access test scores. And so that also, as many of our after-school programs are trying to serve the academic needs of our students. And so providing opportunities for those programs to actually look at the test score information that we have and see what are the particular academic gaps for an individual child. So that's the community data warehouse in a nutshell. And I'll say the work continues. We had a very exciting steering committee meeting on Friday, where the next phase of our conversation is how do we open up access to the community data warehouse for youth sports teams in Springfield, because those are serving such a formative role in our students' lives. I think that's it.
Thank you. And as you can tell, this doesn't happen overnight, so the work continues. To have 18 organizations is really powerful, and we know that work in all settings that kids are touched by, it changes for them. So oh gosh, I want to have you hear the people who are really important. So I'm going to just be very brief and actually introduce, just have people stand up who are working in different areas of that we've highlighted on these posters. And I hope you'll maybe take a look before you go at the poster and sort of see what the substance of the work is. We have done a great deal of family engagement. That's really important to us. And so we engaged parents in our public housing. Public housing has always been a great partner, and we have several members from the Springfield Housing Authority. I hope you'll stand up, because we have a great program called Talk, Read, Succeed that is done for targeted families with children birth to 9 at certain public housing sites, housing authority sites, and legislators. I hope you will pay attention to that, because you are great supporters of our efforts to get state funding for that work. So, Angelo, here's to you and to all of our other state legislators. That kind of work, stable families, these women can work with them on an ongoing basis, know who the families are, know who the children are, and provide sort of a 2-generation framework of support. So, thank you for that. We have a huge communications campaign. Mary, cover your ears, because we never thought that our foundation would be doing so much work around communications. But we have to reach families. We have to reach families with the importance of this work that starts at a child's birth. We can all support those families, but it starts at home, it starts at birth. And so we have done a great deal of communicating around, and we started with a parent advisory group. I know Melissa's here. Do I have anybody else on the Melissa, stand up. We brought together a parent advisory group to tell us how do we make these messages helpful and informative, and how do we get them to families. And so we have a very powerful social media. We do a lot of social media. We have a Reading Success by 4th Grade Facebook page. We have 3,000 people who come to that regularly. We formed a partnership with we want to see, our major goal was to have parents see each other reading to their children. So we started a Twitter campaign, #413reads. We found a partner in Pride stations and stores, and when families send us a photo, they send us photos either on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Do you believe it? I can do those social media things. Whew. Once a month, we pick a family, and Bob Bolduc at Pride gives us $50 Pride Stores gift cards. Now, in our community, Pride stores are not simply convenience stores. They have fresh food, so that for many families in Springfield, the Pride Mercado serves as a source of fresh food for families. So it's a very, very powerful partnership. We created a text messaging campaign called 413 Families, and we have partners, the Y, the library, stand up, the Y, the library, the museums, Springfield Public Schools. We send 2 text messages a week to families. They opt in to 413 Families or 413 Familias for Spanish messages, and they get 2 text messages a week about cool things to do with your family here in the Springfield area. Thanks to our parent advisory group, they told us that's the way we communicate with families. So we have a texting campaign, and we have wonderful media partners. Again, communicating all this work doesn't happen just by magic. So Western Mass News, Marjorie Hurst, are you here? Stand up, Marjorie Hurst. I have been writing a column every month that Marjorie prints called Reading for Success since 2013. I mean, that's an incredible partnership. We're very grateful for that. The Republican, Elizabeth Roman is here. I'm excited because Toy for Joy this year, the Toy for Joy campaign is including books in the Toy for Joy campaign, and they've actively promoted it. And Liz has said to me that families, when they make donations, they say that they're very happy that books are now a part of this campaign. So that's a very powerful partnership that we've been dreaming about for a long time. Okay, we do a lot. A whole component of our work is public policy and advocacy. Our gurus are here from Strategies for Children, Amy O'Leary, Chris Martis, Titus Dostromedios. Thank you. We don't make a move because they're so much smarter than we are, that we work with them all the time. And I'm now going to give you our really big guns. We've saved our really big guns here. The people we really want to hear from you, because I want you to know this work that we're doing is magical for kids in Springfield, Massachusetts. But I want you to know how many other children are being touched by this work that Davis began it, and we now have a lot of partners, and I want you to hear about the incredible work of the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. So Mike, I think you're going to introduce our first.
That's fine. My pleasure this morning to introduce Ron Fairchild. Ron is a former teacher. He's currently president and CEO of the Smarter Learning Group, which is a national education consulting firm. For the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, Ron takes the lead on managing the Grade Level Reading Support Center, which delivers technical assistance to communities like Springfield in areas of school readiness, attendance, and summer learning. He delivers these services to more than 350 communities around the country, which is really amazing. And he helps all of us in our efforts to move the needle on third grade reading proficiency. So thank you, Ron, for being a thought leader and being a partner here in Springfield.
Thank you, Mike, and Sally, and Mary, and John, and all of you. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you this morning. I will confess that it was a little bit surprising when I actually got the invitation from Sally, because as she shared in her story, we have a bit of a history with this particular time of year. It was back in 2011 when we gave Sally an opportunity to go first, to file the plan for Springfield with the rest of the grade level reading network. And I don't think Sally has quite ever forgiven me for having her give up her holiday break to help prepare that plan. But it is great to be here and to be here with you today. And, you know, I think it's fitting in a year for the campaign that was a milestone year for us collectively, that Ralph and I have the opportunity to be here today in Springfield, our final community visit for 2017. And the reason why 2017 is so special was it was a year where we made a promise that we would circle back to the communities that filed plans and began this work and initiated this work and provide recognition for those that not only put a plan together, not only mobilized their communities, but actually made measurable progress for low-income kids. That is what this year has been about for the campaign. Recognition, acknowledging the success that communities have experienced, but also making a pivot to the next phase of the campaign. And so what I want to do today is really acknowledge and recognize that Springfield is an incredible community that has led the way at every stage of development of the campaign. As Sally mentioned, only 4 communities have received All-America City Awards for filing plans back in 2012 and then receiving recognition this year for actually making measurable progress against those plans. So I want to give Sally and everyone here in Springfield a huge round of applause for that accomplishment of being able to not only file a plan, but actually deliver the results on that plan. So congratulations on that. Springfield has also been a pace setter for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading from the very beginning of the work. We know this year 180, more than 180 communities out of a network now of 340 plus communities have actually demonstrated that they have made measurable progress in one of these solution areas that you heard outlined earlier. Springfield is notable in that group because they have consistently showed measurable progress in these areas of school readiness, school attendance, summer learning, and overall grade level reading. So that we are thrilled to recognize that accomplishment, to acknowledge the pace setter status of Springfield, and also to really say that we are looking forward to the next phase of work. Because one thing I have seen in visiting dozens of communities around the country this year, and I know it's true here in Springfield, no one is satisfied with the results that they've achieved thus far. We have the data. We know that even in communities that have made significant progress, a double-digit percentage increase in the number of low-income kids reading proficiently by the end of third grade, we know even in places like Springfield, gaps still persist. And we need to really work hard to take the next step. No one in our network is saying, we're finished. We are running the flag up the pole and declaring victory. We know that there's a tremendous amount of work to do going forward. And just as Springfield has set the pace at every stage of the campaign from its inception, we know that Springfield, we're confident that Springfield is going to set the pace for the next stage. So with that, I want to say thank you. I want to acknowledge all the hard work. This doesn't happen without a tremendous amount of coordination and alignment. And that's really what's going to be the key to get to the next level of work with the campaign and with your goals here. I've been impressed from the very beginning about the data-driven aspect of this work here in Springfield. I have borrowed a mantra that I heard Mary repeat in Denver, and one that John Davis has, I think, has ultimate ownership of this mantra. But the mantra is, in God we trust, everyone else brings data. And that mantra has been a key in communities that have demonstrated measurable progress, and it's one that we gladly borrow and acknowledge that we have learned from the great work here in Springfield. That's going to be something that's going to be critical in this next phase of work. So with that, I want to say thank you. I want to say that we look forward to working very closely with you, and perhaps maybe there will be other holiday work assignments in the future for all of us as we work harder and smarter together to close gaps around grade level reading. So thank you very much.
I don't need to introduce Mary.
No, but I'm short. Can anybody see me? So, first of all, good morning, and thank you all for being here. I have so much I'd love to say, but I'm gonna hold back. I am gonna go off script completely. I have permission from Ralph to do this. I do not have permission from the person I'm about to say something about. We will talk about Sally and her impending retirement, but I do want to say that this week, our administrative assistant and grants manager, Christine Warren, will be retiring after 17 years at the Davis Foundation. Chris, I want everyone in this room who has ever spoken to Chris, heard her voice on our voicemail, had her greet you at our door, stand up. She probably won't even go to work this afternoon. She'll be so mad at me. Chris, that was a standing ovation, you might have noticed. We just couldn't miss the opportunity. She's refused to have a party. I couldn't miss the opportunity to say thank you, and I know that all of you really were touched by her time with us, and she's going to be deeply missed. My job now is to introduce Ralph, who, believe it or not, really doesn't even need an introduction. And I have to show you that they sent me this bio. It's 2 pages long, The print is so small, even with my glasses, I can't read it. And so he and I made a deal that I'm going to read like 2 to 3 paragraphs. But first of all, I just want to say thank you, Ralph. You're a good friend of Springfield, and we really appreciate that you and Ron came here. And we'll be talking a little bit more about our work moving forward. So I call Ralph the Pied Piper of reading success. I think that's been coined as the term for him. But prior to being the Pied Piper, Ralph was a lawyer. He calls himself a recovering lawyer. But I am going to read a couple of things. Ralph calls himself a recovering law professor, but he acknowledges that his background as a corporate and securities lawyer helped him to appreciate the role of markets and the private sector and the value of cross-sector collaboration. Ralph, I think we have some cross-sector collaboration in this room, and you certainly have helped us make that happen. Bringing together unusual allies and unlikely champions was the hallmark of Smith's work at the Casey Foundation. From his leadership in supporting families in their critical role in children's lives, to mobilizing communities to be change agents in improving outcomes for vulnerable children and families, to promoting reforms that helped ex-offenders become productive citizens. As managing director of the Campaign for Grade Level Reading since 2010, Ralph, it says Smith, I'm going to call you Ralph. Ralph has been forging consensus around ensuring that children reach the critical developmental milestones of reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. I'm sure Ralph's going to tell you a ton more, but I know that when we started, Ralph, Springfield was working on reading success by 4th grade. How many communities are now working on reading success by 4th grade? 350 communities, a result of the leadership of an individual in Ralph Smith, the Casey Foundation, and the great team he put together. Ralph, thank you.
Good morning. Now, I know those of you who realized that I was sitting over there. It is not true, and despite all appearances, I wasn't running away from Sally Fuller. I know that you may think that is only logical and appropriate, but it wasn't. I have really serious allergies, and the cure for them is my grandmother's recipe of hot water. So I was trying to get as close to the hot water as I could. So let me say good morning again. And it is so rare that Ron Fairchild and I are in the same room at the same time, unless we have a prearranged meeting and folks have worked it out, that only Sally in December 18th could figure out after a long year how to really get us here. And one of the reasons why we're not in the same room is because after Ron stopped speaking, there's very little for me to say because Ron so captures the campaign. And then we have Carolyn Lyons here, just in case Ron and I really messed it up. Then we go to the first team. Carolyn, you know Carolyn from her work here, the Strategies for Children. She has been an enormously valued colleague with the campaign. So I'm going to do a few things this morning in the time I have. One, tell you a little bit about where we are as a campaign and where we're going. But more importantly, I want you to eavesdrop on a conversation I'm going to have with John Davis. And John's not going to have a whole lot to say in this conversation right now, but I want you to hear what I want to say to John about this work. When we look at the campaign right now, we have 3 major assets. One, we've worked real hard, and in many ways, we've contributed toward what I'm going to call a micro-movement across the country. We see and hear people talking about grade-level reading. And we see and hear that there is not just a shallow commitment to grade-level reading, but folks understand that it's not going to happen by magic or simply by good intentions. The grade level reading is tied to efforts to improve school readiness, tied to efforts to improve attendance and reduce chronic absence, and really connected to stopping the summer slide and improving the options for summer learning. That's an important development, and we see it in the media, we see it in the publications of our partners, and we see it in efforts all across the country. And that's, in many respects, a product to which we've contributed with what we call the air game of the campaign, to raise awareness, to deepen understanding, and to build support for this set of issues. And as we go forward with this micro-movement, we really see ourselves growing that movement. And think about Springfield. Think about who's not now at the table. When we meet in February with the Beyond School Hours Conference, that will be an effort to wrap into the campaign after-school programs from around the country. Because as you found here in Springfield, it is not just what happens during the school day. It is what happens before the school day and what happens after the school day. Not just during the school year, but over summer and holidays as well. What we know is a large number of children need 24/7, 365, two-generation support. And what we know about schools is they're not 24, they're not 7, they're not 365. And when I'm not in Springfield, I say that those school districts often are two-generation only under duress. There's something special happening here, and I want to acknowledge that. So our first asset is this micro-movement. Our second asset, we call it a network of places with plans. And we intended from the outset to find communities that would commit to this work and commit to becoming proof points that it was possible to do. We did not anticipate that we would have 350 communities. In fact, the word terror came into our lexicon in 2012 when we realized that we would have 124. And that was very different from November, December of 2011, when we were concerned that not enough people would file plans without some inspiration and example. And we turned to Springfield and disrupted Sally's holiday vacation. She did, they looked at it, and 3 months later we had 124 communities joining the campaign. But when you got that number of campaigns, the community campaigns, you realize pretty quickly, just a matter of survival, that you better create a network. And we left Denver in 2012 with a network of places with plans, which means we have an opportunity to learn from each other, learn about each other, and learn with each other. And as we go forward, we are taking every opportunity to build what I hope will be the most impressive learning network in the country. And what you see behind me is very much a part of that network. We want, as we did in November of 2011, other communities around the country to learn from Springfield, with Springfield, and about the important work you're doing here. The third asset we have is a number of funder coalitions across the country. We set out to engage local funders. We set out to tilt philanthropy, knowing that the discretionary resources in these communities were part of the problem, and to the extent that they were a mile wide and an inch deep. And we bet that if local philanthropy put a stake in the ground around grade level reading, that local philanthropy would change its practice. And we've got powerful evidence all across the country that these funder coalitions are creating a profound change in philanthropic practice, one that is going to be more impactful and more durable than any we've seen for a long time. So those are our three assets: a micro-movement, a network of places with plans, and a number of funder coalitions committed to doing this work. We think that this augurs well for the future. And what does the future hold for us? We think that we have an opportunity, and I say we, to actually do more than move the needle. We think we have the opportunity to say out loud what the superintendent came close to saying but did not. I talk about superintendents all the time. Superintendents are the Marines of our time. They take on the mission impossible, and they don't ask whether to take the hill, it's just how quickly. They can say, we've got 80% of the kids in this city in poverty, and still muster the energy to say, we're going to have those kids succeed. And what that means, the rest of us are going to have to say it out loud. All around the country, I say that here in Springfield, a major philanthropist asked the question that all of us should have asked a long time ago. He looked at the data and he says, where's the outrage? And you know, when I say that, no matter where I am, you look out and you see people saying, that is the question. Well, let me give you another piece of reality. That here in Springfield, we can predict, just by knowing where a child is born tomorrow, we can predict that a significant portion, and probably even a majority of those children, from the day they are born, are destined to live a life of poverty. We can predict that with amazing accuracy. So the question remains, where's the outrage? And if we did not harness the assets we have to take that on in the next generation of our work, we would have missed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And that is where the campaign is going. We believe that it is possible, given the work we've done, given what we've accomplished together, to take on this issue of saying that no child on the day they're born should be destined to poverty for the rest of their lives. And what that means is we are going to have to do more to make sure kids are born healthy. We are going to have to do more to make sure they're ready for school. We are going to have to do more to make sure that they are on grade level with both reading and math by the time they get to fourth grade. And what we know and what you know is this is no mission impossible. What you now know is that this is no mission impossible. So as we go forward with the campaign, you're going to see us talking about really working on that 0 to 8 continuum. Because what we know today is there's virtually no community where a critical mass of low-income kids get the requisite number of touches in the right sequence, at the right dosage and duration. Practically no community could say that for a critical mass of low-income kids. And if kids are not getting the required number of touches in the right sequence with sufficient dosage and duration, why would we expect that anything would change? So you're going to see us thinking and talking and working and advocating around 0 to 8, the 0 to 8 continuum. The quiet secret is that while many of us have really great programs, not one of these programs today produces effects that are sufficiently powerful to close the gap and move kids out of poverty. Not one. That is a little secret we don't tell each other. So it means that we're going to have to aggregate programs. We're going to have to say, you know, if you've got a 0.5 and I've got a 0.3, let's go find somebody who's got another 0.4. That we're going to have to say that we need to aggregate effects so we can get the game-changing impacts. We're going to have to get all the pieces on the table. And here in Springfield, when we look and we say we want bigger outcomes, we say we want families in the mix, you got it. We've got to pay attention to health, you're doing it. We've got to look at kids who are in public housing, you're there. You've got to essentially take technology and use it to expand reach and efficacy, to look at high-tech and high-touch solutions, you're there. You've got to mobilize the entire community, you're there. So as we take on this work toward bigger outcomes, game-changing impacts, and scale, we're going to be looking for communities across the country willing to stay the course, willing to drive that stake even deeper, and say, in our community, we're going to commit to making that change. And so my question here today is, why not Springfield? You've come this far, why stop now? And I am absolutely delighted that Sally Fuller is going to find a way, with Mary's help, with John and Steve's support, to continue on this work, because if she wasn't doing it here in Springfield, we would drag her away from Springfield to do it someplace else. But more important than Sally Fuller, and she says this all the time, is the fact that in Springfield you have put the pieces together. You've got the community data warehouse that people are still dreaming about. You've got a superintendent who's not resistant but on board. You've got a funder coalition that's formed. You've got a community foundation lead who's talking about accountability and reciprocity. You have what it takes. And quite frankly, that's why I came today. Because just as we needed Springfield in 2011 and 12, just as we needed you then, we need you now. We need you to stay the course and to commit to being one of the few communities in the country that says it is outrageous, it is an abomination that we can predict a lifetime of poverty the day some kids are born in our community. So I want to repeat to John, where's the outrage? And I want that outrage to be felt here in Springfield, and I want you to lead the way. Thank you. Now, because of John, I'll tell you because of John, we have used this where's the outrage so much all across the country. John, you've got people across the country who applaud that, and you probably have some people who don't like you for it, but blame us, because we talk about it all the time. And we decided that if we were going to call out John Davis all across the country, one, we should tell him, just in case, and two, we should really acknowledge that he found, in 3 words, a way of giving voice, giving expression to what many of us felt and all of us should. So we decided that we would acknowledge John Davis as a champion of grade level reading. And then we realized if we did that, John would have a whole lot more enemies than friends. And so we actually established a category of work. We actually found a way to invite communities across the country to nominate their champions. But we didn't wait for Springfield to nominate their champion. We went first. And we called up and talked to Mary and Sally and say, we know John's a modest guy, and we don't want to embarrass him, but it is important to us in the campaign. And Mary and Sally somehow got John to say yes. And we were so looking forward to having John in Denver in June in front of everybody to say thank you to John. And John couldn't make it to Denver. But we would not let this opportunity pass. And Ron and I, knowing we would both be here today, decided we would collaborate on this presentation to John. And I want to tell you that I was going to read the citation myself. And then Mary and I were reading my resume this morning and realizing that neither one of us could read that fine print. And I confessed to Mary that I can't read the fine print on that either. The good thing about having a partner who's so much younger is he's got better eyes. So let me ask Ron to read the citation, then we'll ask John to come forward. Ron?
Thank you, Ralph. And how fitting to be in the Hall of Fame today. We don't have a Hall of Fame at the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, but we do have a Council of Champions. So the statement says, Springfield, Massachusetts, December 18th, 2017. In the Campaign for Grade Level Reading's efforts, we've had the privilege of working with outstanding philanthropic leaders, including John Davis, Senior Trustee for the Irene E. and George A. Davis Foundation. At a community meeting in Springfield, Massachusetts in early 2009, where civic leaders learned that less than 1/3 of the city's 3rd graders could read at the proficient level, Davis galvanized the city of firsts and the birthplace of Dr. Seuss with a simple question: where's the outrage? The Davis Foundation launched Reading Success by 4th grade, one of the nation's first all-out community mobilization efforts for grade-level reading success. In 2012, Springfield was named to the first cohort of All-America City Grade-Level Reading Award honorees. With its insistence on reading proficiency among 3rd graders, Reading Success by 4th grade has become a rallying cry for Springfield schools, civic leadership, business community, and nonprofit organizations. For these contributions and in recognition of his ability to set the pace for other community foundations across the country, the Grade Level Reading Campaign today honors John Davis as a grade level reading champion. John?
pose it. I'm going to pose it. Open it up, Jeff. Open up. Face me. I want to see it. There you go. Okay. Right here. One more. Anyone need-
Well, Ron and Ralph, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I wanted to go to Denver. They finally talked me into going, and then I had to have my gallbladder out, so I couldn't go. But I'm in much better shape today, but thank you. You know, as I look across this room, I really accept this with you all in mind here and all the work. I mean, as we've heard today, it's amazing. And we've got a lot more work to do, and let's get back to work. Thank you.
All right, believe it or not, we are going to close out this meeting. Congratulations, John. I don't know what Sally and I would do without his leadership. It always worries me when we have these kind of events because we so don't want it to be about Davis. And so I really want to thank everyone that this event was really about all of you. And contrary to popular belief, it is not Sally's retirement party. We will, in fact, feat Sally. I'm not exactly sure how, but we will, in fact, feat Sally when she does retire. When Chris announced her retirement, frankly, we've had to hire 2 people to take her place. One of who's in the back of the room, by the way, Magnus Monroe, has joined us at the Davis Foundation, so you will now get to know Magnus. We're happy to have him. And we have a new woman at our front desk. Her name is Latona, and I hope you also will. I'm forgetting Latona's Boyd. I'm sorry, I forgot her last name for a minute. But we are going to experience Sally retiring in 6 months. And while a part of me wants to say it's a problem, I will be a John Davis and I will say it's an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that this work continues throughout the community. We cannot just have a Sally Fuller at the Davis Foundation as the only leader of this effort. And I say that carefully because all of you are leaders of this effort. But we are going to take this opportunity to really think about how do we sustain the momentum of this really important work. And we recognize that we are going to, just like Chris, need 2 people to fill her role. We are now going to have to really look into the community to play even a greater role than you've already played in keeping this work going. We are totally committed to staying in this work. We are totally committed as a foundation to continue to fund in this space. We will continue to support, where is it? The Funder Collaborative for Reading Success. But there are components of this work that we feel strongly can really become embedded in the community and frankly even have more power and strength than we've been able to do with this amazing woman running the ship as far as this campaign is concerned. So we have hired a consultant. That's what foundations do. They hire consultants when they don't know exactly what to do. And Sam, is Sam here? I didn't, Sam's hanging out in the corner. Sam Stevens, some of you know him. He's been working with the United Way on their work. He's also been evaluating the Talk, Read, Succeed initiative. He did an evaluation of this work for us, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. And so he is going around and working with us and talking with those of many of you to say, what is the best next step for this work? Sally reminds me, 12 years ago, we hired her for a job that I said was going to last 3 years. We're thrilled that it's been 12 years, but we really believe that this is an opportune time to really think about how do we really sustain this work. And while we've needed you before, we really need you now. We'll be with you, but we need you. And we will be looking forward to sort of what the next opportunity is for this work throughout the community of Springfield. So thank you all for being here. Hang with us. We're going to continue this important work, and we appreciate all your time and energy, and everyone have wonderful holidays. Thank you.
Thank you all for staying with us. And I'm just going to cue the video, if you can give us a couple more minutes, what we did in our 413 Families text messaging campaign around Thanksgiving. We always have tried to keep it interactive, and we said to families, the 2,500 families who have opted in, we said, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? And here is just a sample of the photos and the thoughts that our families texted us back in the campaign.